Hello and welcome how to make a dialog editor using GraphView blah blah blah. Let's just continue. Alright, so last time we made the generate node function and now we need to make the generate edges function. So that is of course a void. Most of those functions here are void, so let's just call it connect nodes. And this one is of course also going to get the dialog container, because that is where we are saving all our data. So now we need to go through each of the dialog containers, each of the edges. Let's actually just fast call the different functions here, methods. We are using C# after all. There we go, and then connect nodes. And remember, it has to be in this specific order because we need to connect the nodes before we can actually connect them. So after we have connected them, we can now, after we created them, we now need to connect them. And for that, we are going to use the for loop. That is going to be nodes. If I could spell this correctly, nodes.count. So we're going through all of our nodes. And remember, in the top, all our nodes is pretty much just, all our nodes, all the start, dialog, editor, not editor, end and event. So we're gonna go through each of those, and then we need to make a node link data listed that is simply called connections. Connections. And that is of course equals our dialog container dot node links. And we need to find, so we're gonna go where. Oh, no, let's just go where the edge. Let me just make sure I spell this correctly. This is edge, right? I believe so. Where the edge, not edges, edge, dot, oh, so I did spell it wrong, so like this, dot edge, dot base node equals the node, nodes, yeah. Node, and then we need to tell it which node we are on right now. And the node's gun. And of course we need to return this as a list. So, to list. There we go. Alright, so what are we doing? We are looking at the node, and we are then telling how many edges are actually connected to this current node. And we want all the edges that are connected to this node. So now we have a collection of all the edges and connections to this node, where afterwards we now want to actually make. We want to go through each of these connections and actually connect them. So we're gonna go count. And this of course cannot be I, so we're gonna make it J instead. Yeah, that should be fine. We're gonna go string and call it target node gun equals connections, and which connection it is, of course, dot target gun, where after we need to find out which node it is actually targeting. So we're gonna go target node equals nodes dot come on. It's just me that needs to spell it correctly. First, equals target. No, not target node. Target gun. There we go. Alright, so we're going through the list of and finding the first one that matches, that has the same node gun as the target gun. And the reason why we're saying first is simply because we know there's only one, and meaning when it says first, we're just telling the list to stop when it finds the first one. So we don't need to go through the rest of the list, because that's just kind of waste of performance. But then again, this function is never gonna be called in runtime of the game, so you could say it doesn't really matter to optimize performance, but it's always nice to know that you can do this. So let's say if you have a node of 1 billion and it's number 2 on the list, that means it will stop after that and not go through the rest of the billion in the list. So at least you know that now, right? And our current function only wants to go through this one if the nodes. Oh, sorry about that. If that one is dialog, if I could spell dialog node equals false. Oh, I need to equals false. So we only wanted to make the connection. Actually, what we are doing right here is, let's just go into here so it makes more sense. So the way we are making the connections, let me just make some connections so you can see. Oh, that one doesn't have an int, so let's just go int node event. So what we are doing is, oh, let's just make one more int. There we go. Is that we are saying, oh, each node output, we are going to connect that to its target node. However, if it is a dialog node, we don't want those here to target other nodes. And the reason for that is this one goes through the list and just connects the first one to the first, meaning if I do this and this, the list will actually recognize this one. Oh, we actually need to, if I go like this, and then this, because this is the first edge that has been connected, meaning it will actually connect it to this one when we load it in, because this one was the first one connected, so it's just going to connect to the first one. So if we like have 4 of those, it will just and we set it to this, it will still say, well, you're the first one, so I'm going to connect you to number 1. And even if we did number 1 here and then number 3 here, when we load it in again, it will connect it to number 2. Wait, of course not what we want. So we are instead going to tell it we don't want this function just to connect them to be here. To here. So we're going to make another function down here that does the dialog connection node false. But right now we need another function that links them together. So we're just gonna make another method down here. That is also a void. And we're just gonna call it link nodes together. Let me just check my notes if that is spelled correctly. It seems so. So it is going to take in 2 ports. So port, that is the, oh, if I can spell this right, output port, and the input port, and of course make the underscores, because that is what we do. Wonderful. Right, let me just quickly take my notes. So we of course need to make the edge, and we're gonna call it temporary edge equals new edge. Oh, I forgot this one. Alright, so then we need to tell it that the output is equals output and the input is equals the input. Quite simple, right? Alright, so then we of course want it to actually connect, so we're gonna go input dot connect, and we need to call the function connect, and we want it to connect. There we go, and simply gonna call the output one as well. And after we have connected it, we will simply add it to the graph view. Dot add temporary edge. There we go. Alright. So let's plug this one in here. And this one up here is of course, let me just quick check my node. So that is the node. And we of course need to tell it which one it is. That is the output. And we need to tell it what port it is. And we're gonna use this find function. Dot, dot. And it seems we need a reference. That's because we need a reference to the UI element. The reference I added was the Unity UI elements. And the other one we need of course to go target node dot input and 0. Oh, and we of course need to return it as a port, so let's just go port. So, alright. So, here we are giving it the input and the output. So we see we are finding the node we are current at, and we are then telling it which connection we are current at, and we want it to use that port. This function here I'm not that normally so-called used to using, but it is one of the visual elements ports, visual elements functions. So I'll probably recommend to go in and read a little about it because it is a little confusing, but quite handy nonetheless. And of course here we're simply going to say that the target node that we found using this beautiful thing, and we're just gonna input container that is of course the input, and in our version of this dialog node, every node only have one input. So we're of course just going to say, well, put it in the first input slot. And down here we are making the connection because we know which port we need to connect to, and we are adding the connection to our system. Wonderful. Alright. Now let's make the dialog nodes. Let's first make a list of dialog nodes. If I could spell it, dialog nodes, and that we're just gonna call it dialog nodes, and that is of course equals node dot find all node where node is dialog node. And we of course also want, because dialog node is a base node, we also want it to be cast, of course, as dialog nodes. And we will also like it to be returned as a list. So first we are telling it we want to find, we want to go into the list of all the base nodes and find all the nodes that is dialog nodes. then they are returned us as base nodes. However, we also want them to be returned. So we're gonna say cast dialog node as dialog nodes, and we would like it to be returned as a list. This right here should return it as a list, but because we're casting it, we also need to tell it that we wanted the casting, the converted version to be returned as a list. Alright, so here we're just gonna use for each. I know I'm jumping a little around in the for loops and for each, but I hope that is alright for our learning purposes. So I'm pretty much the reason why I'm doing it is because I want to try and use all the different methods so people can see which kind of function they think is best for using. I hope that makes sense. Else it's just me being a little messy. It's one of those. We will never know. Alright. Oh. So. So now we have all the dialog nodes here. So we of course want to go through each of the dialog nodes, but we're actually going to make a for each loop and a for each loop. I know that's normally a big, ugh, please don't do that. But we are lazy today, so we're just gonna do that. And this is of course the dialog node pod. And we're just gonna go node pod. And when we go through each of them, we of course want the base target node. So base node. I'm just gonna call that, if I could spell it again, target node is of course equals node dot first. Yes, I could spell it this time. That of course is of course just node dot node gun equals dialog. Oh no, not dialog. Node port dot input gun. Wonderful. And then we can pretty much make the same link up here. So we're just gonna go link. Link together. Where are you? There you are. Link together, and we are simply just gonna go node port dot my port, because that is the port in the dialog that we want this specific node port to be the output port. Wow, that is a mouthful. So we're gonna go input container, and we just want the first port. And remember that we of course want to convert this to a pod. So we are going to save this, and I actually think this should be it for the save and load function, I think. So let's go into our, let's just use this reference to go there. So we need to go into editor window and need to find the load function. Let me also just do that in my notes just to make sure that we're doing it correctly. So we need to, of course, down here, go one below and go save and load dot load, and of course give it our current dialog container. Or we can delete this and save, and let's actually see if we can load it in. So let's just clear and save and try and make something. So we have the start, we have our dialog. See, can we save and load this one in? So far so good. So what if we do this? Oh yeah, save and load. Oh, there is an error, meaning something went wrong somewhere. So can we please? Alright, so there's an error here, Let me just quickly look at my notes. Maybe I tapped something wrong here. Da, da, da. Input no, that looks correct. Uh, hmm. Doesn't seem. What does it actually say in here? Circuit container, no matching elements. I guess it's because it's not saving it correctly then. Let's go up to the saving. You know what? Let's just end the episode here, and I will make the next episode about actually finding out what we are doing wrong. Alright, so thank you for watching.